On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces launched a surprise invasion of South Korea, swiftly capturing Seoul within 3 days. Backed by Soviet tanks and artillery, the Korean People's Army, KPA, overwhelmed ill-prepared South Korean defenses. This offensive marked the first major conflict of the Cold War era, with over 70,000 North Korean troops crossing the 38th parallel. The rapid advance displaced hundreds of thousands of civilians and set the stage for international intervention. Following General MacArthur's successful Incheon landing in September 1950, UN forces under U.S. leadership launched a counteroffensive that pushed North Korean troops back to the Chinese border. By October, UN forces had recaptured Seoul and advanced northward, reaching the Yalu River. This rapid progress alarmed Chinese leaders, who viewed the approaching foreign troops as a direct threat to their border security and national sovereignty. In October 1950, Chinese Communist Party leaders engaged in heated debates about intervening in Korea. Mao Zedong ultimately authorized military action, fearing the U.S.-led UN forces would threaten China's industrial northeast. Despite opposition from some Politburo members, Mao argued that allowing foreign troops near the Yalu River would be unacceptable. This decision would commit over 300,000 Chinese troops to the conflict under the guise of volunteers. In late October 1950, the People's Liberation Army began secretly deploying troops across the Yalu River under darkness. Designated as the Chinese People's Volunteers, these forces moved at night to avoid UN aerial detection. Over 300,000 soldiers from the elite 9th Army Group entered North Korea, equipped with light weapons but lacking adequate winter gear. This massive covert operation would soon change the course of the war. The first major clash between Chinese and UN forces occurred at Onjong on October 25, 1950. The Chinese 40th Army ambushed South Korean units, inflicting heavy casualties, using surprise attacks and night fighting tactics perfected during the Chinese Civil War. The PLA demonstrated its effectiveness against modern armies. This battle marked China's official entry into the Korean War and signaled the beginning of a much broader offensive. In late November 1950, 120,000 Chinese troops surrounded 30,000 UN soldiers at the Chosin Reservoir. Despite suffering from frostbite in negative 35 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, the Chinese 9th Army launched human wave attacks. The U.S. 1st Marine Division, though outnumbered, conducted a fighting retreat while inflicting massive casualties. This brutal 17-day battle became legendary for both sides, with Chinese losses estimated at 35,000 to 60,000 men. Following the Chosin battle, UN forces executed a massive withdrawal from North Korea in December 1950. Over 100,000 military personnel and Korean refugees were evacuated from Hungnam in what became the largest amphibious withdrawal in U.S. military history. The Chinese offensive had successfully pushed UN forces back below the 38th parallel, but at tremendous cost. This retreat marked the end of UN hopes for a quick victory in Korea. By early 1951, the Korean War had settled into a brutal stalemate along the 38th parallel. Both sides dug extensive trench networks, reminiscent of World War I. Chinese forces, despite numerical superiority, lacked air power and modern artillery. UN forces maintained technological advantages but faced determined enemy resistance. This phase would last 2 years, with neither side able to achieve decisive victory despite heavy casualties. Armistice talks began in July 1951 but would last 2 years as fighting continued. China used the negotiations to bolster its international standing while maintaining military pressure. POW exchanges became a major sticking point, with many Chinese prisoners refusing repatriation. Meanwhile, both sides employed propaganda, the Chinese emphasizing anti-imperialism, the UN defending South Korean sovereignty. The prolonged negotiations reflected the war's complex political dimensions. On July 27, 1953, an armistice agreement was signed, ending 3 years of fighting. The border returned to near the 38th parallel, essentially restoring the pre-war status quo. China had achieved its goal of preventing a U.S.-allied Korea on its border, but at a cost of over 180,000 dead. The Korean War established China as a military power, but left Korea divided, a division that persists today as one of the Cold War's last remaining legacies.